everyone! So in today's video I'm going to show you how you can make your own custom sketchbooks using a couple different methods, and neither of these methods involve any stitching or using a stapler. First, I just wanted to say that this video is sponsored by Skillshare, which is a website that has a whole bunch of videos for you to learn various skills. It's just tutorials, so it's really easy to find what you're looking for without having to sift through a bunch of unrelated videos. And you can learn all kinds of subjects related to design, painting, illustration, photography, a whole bunch of really cool creative topics. They have over 13,000 classes, so you can sign up to watch some of these classes, or you can actually sign up to be a teacher and make your own videos for Skillshare and earn some money. It costs about $10 a month depending which plan you go for, and if you use the link in the video description, you can actually get 3 months for only 99 cents. Thank you so much Skillshare for reaching out, and now I will show you guys what I learned using their video tutorials so far. So this first method is saddle stitching, but without a stapler. So here I'm just taking some drawing paper from a sketchbook, and I know you might be thinking it's weird to just use sketchbook paper to make a different sketchbook, but I have so many sketchbooks that have been gifted to me, and so I decided why not use this paper. It's right here, and it'll be pretty good paper for a sketchbook because it is sketchbook paper. So here I'm just folding it in half carefully so that it's very even, and I'm using a bone folder to smooth down the edges. You could just use your finger or some other hard object, like sometimes I use the side of scissors, like the handle of scissors, to smooth things down. You could use a butter knife, pretty much anything, and just fold all your sheets of paper in half. Then you're going to take each little booklet and stick them inside each other to form a book, and I use 10 sheets, which gives me 20 sheets once it's all folded in half, and you could even use a few more sheets if you want. Next, it's time to make a cover for your book, and you could print off your own art and use something like that for a cover, or you could do what I'm doing and use some scrapbook paper. And since my sketchbook paper was 9 by 12 and scrapbook paper is 12 by 12, the one length actually ends up being perfect, and then I just have to trim some of the excess off the top. Here I'm just trimming down the paper so that it's 9 inches tall to match the size of the interior of the book. You'll notice that when I put the pieces of paper inside the cover looks like it's too short, and that's just because when you fold a bunch of pieces of paper, the innermost pieces stick out, and that's called page creep, and so we're actually going to have to trim off the edges so that all the papers stick out the same amount. Next, we're going to be putting in 2 staples without a stapler. So I'm using my ruler to measure where I want the staples to go, and I actually measured wrong on the one side. It's too close to the edge of the book, but I fixed it later. And the staples are about 1.25 centimeters in width, so that's where I made my lines, and then I used a little pin to poke holes in the book, which is actually pretty easy to do. Then I just took the staple and stuck it in the back of the book. You flip it over, and then you just have to fold down the little arms of the staple, and I just used the back of my knife to push them down. Then I'm just pushing down again with my bone folder to make sure the book lays extra flat. And now it's time to cut off the excess pieces of paper. I just laid my ruler down on the edge of the book and used my knife to cut through 1 or 2 layers of paper at a time. For some reason, I always thought trimming a book like this would be kind of hard. You know, I thought it wouldn't turn out nicely, but as I saw in the Skillshare video, it's pretty easy as long as you're using the ruler and you're not pressing too hard. And like I said, just cutting through 1 or 2 sheets at a time, it's actually really easy to get a nice flat edge. And then as you can see, all the pieces are the same length. Yay, how pretty. And I decided I wanted to take this one step further and round the corners of my book. So I have this little paper punch that rounds corners for me. It's not the nicest one, it sometimes leaves a bit of a jagged edge, so I kind of want to buy a nicer one. But it still did the trick, and so I went through and hole punched 2 or 3 pages at a time till I was through the entire book, and I did that on the top corner as well. And there you have it, a saddle-stitched sketchbook without the use of a long arm stapler, because let's be honest, who has a long arm stapler in their house? Not many people. Before we move on to the second method, I just wanted to let you know that the tutorials I followed on Skillshare were the ones by Caleb Sylvest. He has a handful of classes related to bookbinding, and that is how I learned everything here, like not using a stapler to staple. I never would have thought of that, so I learned quite a few interesting tips from his courses. Now moving on to method number 2, which is going to be a perfect bound book, which is a glued spine. I'm taking the same 9x12 paper I used in the first part, but I'm marking halfway down the paper and cutting all the pages in half instead of folding them. And I'm using my knife and ruler. If you have a guillotine cutter, that'll save you some time. I do have one, but I just wanted to show you the knife method for this specific book. Again, not too much pressure, just go 1 or 2 pages at a time and slowly work your way through the stack. The amount of pages you use is totally up to you. Then I just combine the 2 stacks together, make sure they're all nice and flush, and then I clamped it down just to hold them together. I squished the paper between some heavy books, and I'm using this glue to glue the spine. You want something that is neutral pH, not acidic, otherwise it's going to eventually discolor and whatnot. You always want acid-free when you're dealing with paper stuff. And you also want a glue that dries very flexible. Ideally you use a PVC glue, but not all PVC glues dry super flexible. This one specifically stated it was for bookbinding, so that's what I used. And I used 3 coats of glue, waiting for the glue to dry in between coats. Actually I did 4. The tutorial said 3, but I used 4 coats of glue. While the glue was drying, I decided to make my end sheets, which are part of the interior of the book. So I'm folding it in half with the pattern side inwards and pressing down to make it nice and flat. My glued pages are now dry, and this is what it looks like. And I'm going to take some glue and glue the end sheets onto this book. You could also use double-sided tape if you wanted to, but I decided to use glue for mine. Just a warning, if you do decide to use glue the way I'm doing it, is it dries really fast, so you really have to work fast, otherwise your corners won't stick down. Make sure your glue comes right to every edge and to every corner. So now it's time for the cover. I took some chipboard, cut it to be 9 by 6 inches, and I have some more scrapbook paper also cut to 9 by 6 inches, and I'm gluing the paper down onto the chipboard. I didn't even realize you could make a cover like this by using 2 completely separate pieces for the cover, so without this Skillshare video I never would have known that I could do it this way. I would have tried wrapping one piece all the way around the book. Next, it's time to take the cover pieces and glue them onto the end sheet. So I'm applying the glue directly to the chipboard side and then sticking it down onto my book. Another tip I picked up from the Skillshare video is at this stage you should flatten your book underneath some heavy books so it dries flat. Otherwise the pieces of the cover might curl up on you at the edges. Next step is to do the spine. So we're going to take some tape here. This tape is actually not that sticky. I bought 2 kinds of decorative tape. The pink one was quite sticky. The gold one, not really sticky enough, so I don't really recommend this stuff. But get some tape and tape it onto the spine of the book. In the tutorial I watched, they actually put the tape on when they're at the bookend stage before applying the cover, but I thought it would look nicer if I put the tape over top of the cover. Alright, so here is the finished perfect bound book. It does lay nice and flat, which is pretty good for sketching. And this one doesn't have the edges of the cover folded over, so this edge is a bit rough, but I'll show you another one I made. I actually have a whole stack here. You already saw this one at the beginning of the video, but here are a few others that I made. This is the one that is perfect bound with the cover wrapping around, because this is actually different paper. This is my cardstock instead of just sketchbook paper, and this paper just is a bit smaller, so this piece of scrapbook paper was big enough to fold over. If I had trimmed my other one down a little bit, I could have folded the paper over as well. So you can see this edge looks a lot nicer because the cover is entirely wrapped in paper. So yeah, this one feels really, really nice. I definitely recommend you do it this way. But yeah, that's got marker paper in it. Then I have another saddle stitched book that is just different dimensions. It's a little bit more square. It's a 6x7 book. And yeah, this one just has the regular sketchbook paper in it again. Then this one I made with watercolor paper, and this one's actually a wider one. So it opens up this way and it has watercolor paper inside. Again, lays really, really flat, which is good for your watercolor illustrations. And yeah, this is fun. This one doesn't have a back cover, it's just like this, whereas the other ones all do have a back to it. I love when there's the interior sheet though. That looks so pretty. Just look at that. Oh, it feels so fancy, and it's fun because it's homemade. But yeah, these were super fun to make. I definitely recommend you give it a try. And they don't only have to be sketchbooks. You could put lined paper in there to make it a notebook. You could put that dotted paper to make a bullet journal. You could print off some of your art and turn it into an art book, whatever you want. And now that I'm finished with these, I'm tempted to make more, but I want to check out some other tutorials on Skillshare. There are some about hand lettering, drawing patterns, and watercolor techniques that seriously interest me, so I have those saved to watch later because I'm really interested in that, especially hand lettering because I suck at that, so I'm excited to learn some new skills. But yeah, that is it for this video. If you're interested in joining Skillshare for 3 months for only 99 cents, the link is below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.